No,
15th.
they need this because this
They
our
have to have it. That's why we're having
proposal.
the special meeting now. That's why we have to propose it now.
Right.
So I'm not for holding this up because we have two directors absent.
Well, can we still discuss it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I mean, I had to go buy this old one. Is what I've been going by in May, and which before I got this one, I didn't know it was changed. Like on the science and equipment based on the technology, they weren't anything in this other budget in May this month. It even,
I said, that's not the budget. That's the monthly financial statement.
but there wasn't anything for the science and equipment web based on technology. There was no money even given to that.
Yeah,
So this is my question.
It was in our budget. Yeah, no, we voted
There
on
wasn't
it.
any
We
money
voted
put
on
that
it way
amount
back
for it.
when. We really did. Yeah, that's not the document to be looking at. Yeah. David, I would, we're up, we have time frames to meet. I don't see a problem in approving this to get the public hearing going, because before we finalize it, we can change it.
But doesn't that change the public hearing? They have to have this for information, don't they, to have a public hearing? I
don't know that it requires another public hearing. That would be
It doesn't.
that would be a question for council. Some of these
No.
things do, and some of them don't.
This is the outline, and frankly, I don't see it changing substantially. I mean, this is pretty much what we've had the last several years.
That's my point, right there. Equipment and monitoring wells. No money was on that. Now I know this is probably not the right thing,
No, sir.
No, but
That's your monthly financial
It's
statement.
been in our budget.
but it wasn't listed in our financials.
Because sometimes we don't spend it, and that part of this thing with, the budget actually calls for spending, budgeting a lot more than what we take in case we have to spend it on equipment. And if you look at our audited statements, remember the gentleman that came in on the audit, back in May, June? I think the guy from Uvalde, anyway, when he went over those,
Yeah.
we haven't spent nearly as much as what's budgeted. But the idea is that if we have to have it in the budget in case we have to.
Yes, sir.
Clearly, if we spend $1.2 million, we'll use up our reserves in 3 years. But it has to be in the budget in case we have those extraordinary expenses, but we have not
I
spent it
understand that,
the last 3 or 4 years.
but we haven't been spending what we need to spend. I mean, I know there's money left over at the end by this thing. Now, this is the only thing I had to go by because I didn't have.
But what's that have to do with the budget?
Because it needs to be budgeted to do that. I mean, if we're not going to monitor the wells,
It is budgeted. That's in the budget.
strictly going by what I was given.
Well,
That's your
look at this. It's in the
You
budget.
get one of those.
And that's what we're voting on, because it's in the budget.
I didn't see anything in there that said monitoring the wells.
Well, that's part of the science thing.
But it was separated on this one. That's what I was going by.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, this is what we're voting on, and it's in there. Science covers a lot.
So just talking about the science, whatever, the number is unchanged from last year, right? We
Right.
have the same.
Right. The budget's essentially saying they've eliminated, Greg, because there's no legislative deal in a even year. Slight increase in a couple of things, legal, salaries, but essentially it's the same budget. And, I certainly am comfortable.
About a $90,000 increase in what we're moving over from reserve into the budget that we could potentially spend if we, things like science, additional transducers and things like that. That amount's come down from last year a little bit.
If we get to the point that we're spending more money, we can transfer money back over into the budget later on.
Well, that's
the
why
whole
we have the
point of
transfer. That's why
reserve.
we have the transfer from reserve in the budget, because you can't increase your budget.
Right.
That takes an emergency.
Well,
Okay.
I understand that.
So we have $433,000 transferred from reserve. allocated for well equipment, science, and professional fees. That's a catch-all for if we got to get geology, if we got to buy more transducers, we got to put in another monitoring site. We want to take a monitoring site that we're doing manually now, where we're having to go and get the data and make it into another one that's mobile. We're actually getting it right up.
That's what I'm.
That's
wanting the money
what-
for.
That's what that $433,346 is for, right over there, upper right-hand column.
I just sat down and did some figuring, and I couldn't figure why there wasn't anything for the well months ago.
Well, just when nothing was spent that much. That's because you're looking at a monthly finance, so nothing was spent on it that
I
much.
didn't have to.
I understand.
So that was a question, and then like on the lawyer's fees, $94,000 for lawyers.
I don't know. I'm not looking at the exact line item that
I'm
you're
just
looking
going by what
at.
I have. I mean,
Well, I'm trying to answer your question. Though last year, part of our attorney's fees were also tied up in lobbying during the legislative session. That's one of the items that's been zeroed out on this year's budget because we don't have a legislative session. We won't be spending
The
any money on
lobby
lobbying.
alone was $50-something thousand.
So,
2,000.
and that's because there was what 200. I think he said 235 bills up this legislative session pertaining to water. Over 170 or 80 of them pertain to Chapter 36. And so that's when we've spent that money. But that expense won't be there this year.
Good.
Quick question, Wes, too, about, and we need to talk about this, I think, more, and maybe this isn't the venue to do it, but, the decision or not to bring Greg Ellis in person every month, where's that fit into this? Because that's a, over $35,000 expense per year if we do that, just to get him
Where do you
here in
come up with that
person.
number?
I think it was part of what Greg was.
Every time he shows up, it's $3,300 extra.
Zoom and Greg is the most efficient way.
I think he probably billed us for the time he was
Well,
here.
He was talking about what it cost him to.
I have no doubt that he bills us, but you point blank said it costs $35,000 a year. I just asked you where you came up with that number
No,
from.
that was
Greg
part of
told
what
me.
Greg was talking about. If he has to drive out and the expense, the room, the extra hours he would charge for coming and
I'm
going.
not sure exactly what you're talking about when he was talking about or when this number was established.
It was when we had him on Zoom. I don't remember it being exactly 35, but it was a bunch of money because of the additional time and travel.
I don't recall that, but at the moment, he's not here at this meeting, so
Yeah.
he's not here at every meeting.
Well, it was a special one, but no, that's really.
And how do we
that's
decide
not part
that
of this.
too? I don't know who votes on that or how that's really decided. When is it necessary to have him here in person? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we've got a budget.
Do you want to make that a board decision every time?
Yeah,
All right, well, put it on the next agenda.
I will.
Can we move on with this meeting now?
Sure.
I'm going to move that we accept the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2025-26 and set the public hearing for the budget on September 9th at 6 p.m. at the district office.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? No action taken. Now, we're going to have a problem, gentlemen. Legally, if we don't get this set. So if you don't want to pass it or you don't want to propose it, what do you want to do?
I just think we need more time to review it. I mean, it was just sent to us today.
But it's not final.
It's a
Before
proposal.
we vote on a final, you've got a month or several weeks to review it.
Well,
The
9th is
we're up
the
against a
public
time
hearing.
frame.
I understand that.
So
And
we
then it
need
would
to,
be
we
voted
need to
on
set
during
this
the
stuff,
meeting,
but it's
correct?
not final until we vote on it down the road.
It's
So you
not.
got,
So
you've
we're
got a
not-
lot
You
of
haven't
time to review
approved
it.
anything until August 26th when it winds up on the agenda. First, you got to propose it. Then it has to go to public hearing. Then you have to approve it. That would be on the 26th. You're not approving it. You're proposing it.
You're accepting it, right? The motion was
No,
to
you're not.
accept it. No, we could check the tapes. But it
Ugh.
says right here, a motion should be
Okay.
made to accept the proposed
Would you
budget
like
and
me to
set a
change it?
public hearing.
Would you like me to change it to
Oh, well, that-
proposal?
that's my fault.
You're going to play literacy cop.
I don't know exactly what your wording was, but I'm not prepared to accept it or send it to a public hearing when I have
Then how do
zero
you
time to look
suggest?
at it.
Then how do you suggest that we get done with our time crunch, Director?
I guess after this meeting, we'll have to work with Janelle to figure out a solution to that.
That's,
We're just
we-
going to stall now.
no, David, that's not
Well,
that's not working.
I stand by my vote, and if there's
That's
repercussions for that, then we'll go there when we need to cross that bridge. But I'm not prepared to vote in favor of that motion,
Call a
seeing
recess,
as I've only seen this budget
recess for a few
5
minutes and call Matt and Blake.
I don't know where they're at, and
It wouldn't take long to try.
yeah, we can move on to the next item as far as I'm concerned. Whatever you want to do, Director. I'm open to suggestions. You want to go to recess for a few minutes?
Yeah, David, we need to get this moving tonight. And what you're doing is stalling, and it doesn't help legally. It really doesn't.
I'm sorry, Charlie, but it is what it is.
Like,
Can't go
call
into,
recess. Let me for a few minutes,
Oh, we'll go to recess for
10 minutes. Max.
10 minutes. All right. Let's see, get this thing rolling. We're going to call the meeting back to order. We are still on agenda item 5. Discussion possible action proposed budget fiscal year 2025-24. And we already tried it and we had no action.
Okay, can we change, if we approve this, there's no changing it?
Absolutely, it can be changed.
It can be
Okay,
changed.
but does that?
Why don't we
have to
take
have
public
another-
comment?
No, we do not have to have another public hearing.
I don't think we do.
But we'll check that.
Greg will know.
Greg will know. But
I
for now,
suspect because of the timelines, I suspect we don't have to.
No.
Because
I mean, if
we
if
have
can
a
make
deadline to get it done.
modifications to get it to where we need it. I
Sir?
mean, if we can have this alternated, changed
Changed.
to where, okay,
Alter.
to where we can use the money. And what I'm getting at is we need all these wells monitored that we can. We have no idea how much water's going out. And this is why I was looking at this. But if we don't fix it where we know how much water's out, then how are we going to protect anything?
Well,
It's a
that's,
simple thing to me. I may not be explaining it correct.
well, I think where we might have a slight difference of opinion is that what we're doing here is we're setting the money aside to do that. And
Yes.
what you're talking about is an action to make sure that we're spending it on a certain thing.
But
Which
that's part of the budget, isn't it?
no, actually it's not. It's part of our policy of what we're going to spend that money on. If you wanted to bust it out in a line item, I guess you could, but then you're kind of limiting yourself on what you can spend it on.
it's included in that all-encompassing thing. It is.
Yes, well, that's that. I know Ms. Hobbs, keeps saying I keep going back to this. but
Well, one of
this
the
is a
things-
big deal, and it didn't list it.
Well, if I'm hearing you right, okay, you want to ensure that part of that money is spent for that,
Yes.
right?
That's.
That would be an action that the board would take subsequent to approving the budget
Okay.
to take part of that money out and say, hey, just like if they were going to take part of that money and spend it on geology, they were going to take part of that money and spend it on transducers to put in these wells, that would be a board action that we would take.
Okay.
And then we've got the money in there to do
That's
that.
what I'm looking for. All I want to do is be able to protect the water, and we need to do a little more to protect the water, and that's all I'm here for. I don't understand all this politics stuff.
I hear where you're coming from, and the only thing I'm saying is we want to make sure the money is in there, and then the
Yeah.
second half of what you're talking about is we need to make sure that we take the action that it's spent where
Yes.
it needs to be spent.
One more thing, as an aside, I've been on the board, coming on 3 years. We're in a better position than we've ever been in. And you said you want to know how much water is going out. We know that. Marty's out there monitoring these things all the time. We have more information than we've ever had, and it's getting better.
Yeah.
Jim's coming up with some of this remote monitoring stuff.
That's why
So
I
we're-
was worried about how much money was in there. Well, we
Yeah,
have the
no.
money to put the monitor wells on it where we could read
Yeah,
them right here.
But
Nobody has to go out.
But we've been doing that, and we really are in a lot better shape than we've ever been. That doesn't mean we can't improve. But,
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
the goal is to add to it. I mean, we're not stopping.
Right. We want to add to
Dude,
it.
we ain't
as fast as we can,
stopping.
but we know what's going on. 'Cause
Yeah.
I feel like we're just shooting in the dark on all this stuff, on how much water is actually going out of the ground.
Have you
We
looked
have a
at the
really
monthly
good idea,
reports?
Terry. We're monitoring all these wells. I've got monitors all over my range. We know already. We're learning, and we're adding more as we can.
That's all I'm asking.
Well, you shouldn't say that we don't know, because we are learning all the time.
Yeah, but we don't know exactly. We're still learning.
Well,
Just make
we'll
sure the
always be
money's
doing
in there
that.
where we can do what we need to do. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, it's there.
That was my whole point.
What do
Well,
we
it's
do?
budget. That means
Since it-
Anyone can make a motion
Since
that
it-
wants to.
I know, since
That's
it's got to be in the
Since it
budget.
was-
So.
The more
it only
information we
got
get,
3
the better
votes,
we're
do we
gonna be.
just make another motion? Do we make the same motion?
Floor's open. As far as I know, you can.
Need to
Well, you
read.
made it last time, do it again.
I made it last time. I ain't doing it again.
Okay. All right. It says, motion should be made. I make a motion to accept the proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26 and set the public hearing for the budget on September 9th, which is a Tuesday at 6 p.m. at this office.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-1. These things go again. I did. Next item, discussion possible action proposed tax rate. Set the time and date for public hearing on the proposed tax rate. Floor's open, gentlemen. Discussion, motion, whatever you want to do.
This public hearing can be at the same time, can it not? No, okay. I make a motion that we accept the proposed tax rate of 0.454. Set a public hearing for that tax rate on September 9th, Tuesday at 6 o'clock at this office.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
I would point out that the tax rate is less than the prior year. So it's actually going down. And the reason for that, property values and whatnot, our market property value has gone up slightly. So, since we're taxing a bigger number, we can tax at a smaller rate and keep the income essentially the same for the district. I think it goes up 20,000 or something. So it'll be a smaller tax rate on a bigger number, but it works out to essentially the same as the prior years.
Any further discussion? Motion. Sorry, go ahead. Motion's been made and seconded to accept the proposed tax rate of 0.0454 and set the public hearing for the tax rate on September 9th at 6 p.m. at the district office. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 7, discussion possible action, proposed fee schedule. Set the time and date, public hearing for, and set proposed fee schedule. Janelle, I only have one question on these. Has there been any statutorial changes where we need to increase anything?
No, not that I'm aware of. I will check with Greg to be sure, but as all the things that he's been sending us so far,
Most of these are set by statute. I mean, we have to set them officially,
right,
but
yeah.
most of them,
But there's nothing that has gone.
and as I recall, I think we had max on everything anyway.
Yeah.
Make a motion to accept the fee schedule. Set a public hearing for Tuesday, September 9th at 6:00 at this office.
I'll second it.
I would point out that the fees are the same as they've been for 5 years at least. So they've not changed. We'll get an answer on the statutory thing, but I've not read anything that changed.
The production fees,
Sir,
production fees or
all the fees.
all of these.
All the
Yeah,
fees.
their production, violation fees. Yeah,
Permit
I'll
fees,
give you a
all-
little.
They've been the same for
No,
5
sorry,
years.
Yeah, just
No, it's fine. Good
No,
question.
that's a good question. Export fees, testing permit, regular permit fees, permit renewal fees, transfer of one permit from one owner to another whenever they sell the property, exempt well registration, things like that. Well log deposit. It really covers all the fees that you might, and then violation penalty fees. Okay, motion's been made and seconded to accept the, let me get to the right page here. To accept the proposed fee schedule and set the public hearing for September 9th, 6 p.m. at the district office. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-1. Discussion possible action, code of ethics. I've read through it.
Wes,
Pardon me?
I might mention the highlighted part in red throughout. I worked this up. I sent it to Greg for review, and the parts in red is what he added in. Or
And
changed.
the ones that he's marked through is the ones that are stricken.
So the red line came from Greg.
Yes, sir.
And the original thing, the document that he started with is like the one, like the standard or something he found online or from the state or something
Yes,
like
sir.
that.
I worked it up. I contacted several different districts and kind of melded them all into one document for us, and then I sent it to him to review.
I've reviewed it. Most of this is boilerplate and straight out of statute. I don't have a problem with any of it.
I have a question. All right, under conflicts of interest, and what he added in red, the director may not vote on any matter, the result of which might reasonably be expected to have an impact on or create a conflict with such director's private interest. I'm not sure I agree with that. We have directors that are permit holders. Are you telling me, does this tell me that they can't vote on matters about permits? I mean, that seems
They couldn't
that
vote.
seems too
They couldn't vote
narrow.
on matters concerning their permit.
I'm saying they ought to be able to vote, but this seems to argue against that.
I don't think it says anything beyond what the statute requires anyway. The statute requires you not to have a conflict of interest that involves your private interest. There's nothing there that's not already required that I see.
But this says that you may not vote.
Usually, if you have something that's in, let's say, if you wanted to vote something that was in, that was pertaining to you, right? That's what it
Well, but
says.
that's covered later in some of these other things.
There's also, I remember back when I was in the city, there's also a deal about refraining from voting if you're going to make any money off of the transaction you're fixing to do. So if you're the transaction will be the vote. So if you're trying to vote on something and you're going to get pecuniary gain from it. They usually tell you refrain from voting.
It just seems to me this is too restrictive in our case because we have permit holders on, and apparently always will, but
It's no
because of
more
the way
restrictive than
the
what the current
districts
law
are
is,
set up.
because there's no way for anyone sitting here at this table to stop someone from voting because they think it,
If there's not
it's a conflict with their private
Okay.
interest, because
So you-
I can't determine what his private interests are or what yours are, or Mr. Minley or Mr. Palmer's. And I have no authority to stop you from voting either. This doesn't change anything. It's just
so
stating what the law says.
You're focusing on the word may instead of shall.
No, it doesn't have to do with may or shall.
Well,
Focusing on the content. I'm
shall means
focusing on the
shall means you can't vote.
I'm focusing on the content of the entire deal versus what is required by statute on conflict of interest. There's nothing different here, but this is in red. This would be a question for Greg. We could get him on the phone if you want to ask him.
No, I'm not a permit holder. I mean, if the permit holders, if it doesn't bother y'all, then
That does
fine.
not prevent me from voting on other permit matters. I cannot vote on my own permit matter. I couldn't whether you had this in the policy or not. So I don't see it
Okay.
as being a problem. I don't have a problem with it.
It looks like that's just standard verbiage.
It is.
Well, generally, let me
Role
weigh in
play.
on that, what you're calling, this is all boilerplate or standard language. I have this, and according to my sources, let's go, and Wes, I know you like my sources, but anyway,
Well, you never tell us who they are, so.
a lot of this, yeah, I'll tell you, ChatGPT did this, and it's pretty smart. So,
Who did it?
ChatGPT did it. So, you know what that is? Well, we can talk about that after the meeting, but a lot of this stuff that's in here, and you know, I don't even explain what ChatGPT does either. And we could print out Hayes County's Code of Ethics. You know, there's Code of Ethics examples all over the state. And I think we should have time to do that because this Open Meetings Act section in here is covered by the Open Meetings Act. You don't need to specify the director shall do this, may do that, may or may not do that. That's all in the Open Meetings Act. This destruction of records thing, that's a law too. This whistleblower stuff, that's a law. Abuse of office, you know, that's all like law stuff. Harassment, I'm not sure that that needs to be in our code of ethics. That stuff is covered in other things, and you don't want to make a code of ethics that just repeats and possibly conflicts with what's said other places. You don't need to do that. And so I don't think all that stuff being repeated in here is necessary. Qualification of directors. Qualification of directors is set in the enabling legislation. It's like this says, you don't need to say that a person shall not serve as a director in accordance with, you know, the Water Code Chapter 36. That's a fact. That doesn't need to be in the Code of Ethics. That's not what it does. So this definitely needs to be modified, and this doesn't need to go to public hearing, but the board needs a vote on this to put it in our wherever it goes bylaws. But I don't think it meets our requirements yet, and I propose that we table it basically, I guess.
You know, Greg reviewed this.
I understand you reviewed it, but Greg,
It's a Greg product.
it's not a Greg product. Greg isn't here to tell us what it is actually, but Greg reviewed it for legality, but that doesn't mean that it's something that we should approve.
So we shouldn't put the code of ethics in place that we got.
We should absolutely have a code of ethics, but in my opinion, the format of the code of ethics that we pass shouldn't be this. That's
You gonna
for sure.
present one at the next meeting?
I can do that if you'd like me to, surely.
Well, I mean, if you're not gonna
I will.
go with what's suggested, you know, I want a solution.
Okay.
Not
I'll have a
not if
solution
this ain't
for you.
good enough.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll have my opinion on that. Maybe we need a committee to work on a code of ethics, but maybe we don't. But yeah, I'd be more than willing to do one.
I think Greg is our horse. We've chosen him as our lawyer. he's fine with this. I'll make a motion to accept this.
There's a motion on the floor to table.
Oh, sorry.
Hasn't been a second to it yet.
I move to table it and bring it up at the next regular meeting.
Is there any second?
A second, because I want to look up all the,
There's been a motion and a second to table this until the next stated meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Fails.
I make a motion we accept this as our code of ethics for the
Second.
Kinney County district.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Motion's been made and accept. What about the public hearing for it?
There is no public hearing.
No public hearing on this one? I thought that's what it said in here.
Nope.
Okay.
You see it.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the proposed code of ethics. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-2. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, raise your right hand.